You've just rolled up to In the Mind of Reels, where the whiskey's strong, the opinions are stronger, and there's no filter in sight. I'm talking no holds barred, people. I am Reels, Marine, biker, musician, and unapologetic patriot. I love my country and all things fast, loud, and wild. And if you came here looking for a smooth ride, well, you're in the wrong motherfucking place. Buckle up. Let's get it done. It's time to dive into the chaos that's inside my mind. So, if you know, you know. If you don't, well, you might want to pay attention to this episode. It might save you some headaches down the road, okay? Just saying. So, let me ask you all this. Have you ever been fooled by someone you thought was a great leader? Turned out down the road, they were a total fraud. I gotta tell you, I have. It's happened to me a few times. And you know what? It's not because I'm naive. It's not because I'm unaware. I like to give people chances, right? I like people to prove themselves. And even aside from that, though, there's a lot of good motherfucking actors out there, man. Like, for real. Sometimes, it takes a minute to see the true nature of someone's character, right? Especially if they're really good at lying. Right? It's just like some of these people in the world, man, are just really good at being devious. So, it happens. Years back, I was part of an organization, and I was the new guy. And, it didn't take me long to realize that there was a lot of fear running around. There was a lot of fake loyalty. And aside from that, a ton of beta males, right? We're just running rampant, right? It's never good to have too many beta males because all they want to do is just be yes sir type people. And some wore a good mask, right? Some wore a good mask and played the part well. Okay? And let me just start off by saying there's a lot of good people in that organization, all right? I'm just saying that there was a lot of poor leadership running the show. And, again, like I said, when you're a new person trying to figure out things, you don't notice shit right away. So, like I said, sometimes it takes a while. But I realized after a period of time with this organization that the leadership was rotten from the inside almost all the way up to the top, right? And that was a problem for me. It really was an eye-opener. Yeah, it taught me a lesson that titles don't mean shite if the character and person behind them is weak. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. If you have a weak character and you're just rotten inside, you will never be a good leader. And I'm a firm believer in that. So today we're gonna dive into how bad leadership can absolutely destroy an organization. And why putting the wrong people in charge is essentially a slow death sentence for any organization. And that's just my opinion, right? So I want to start off, I guess, with what I think real leadership isn't, right? We're going to start with the negative first, right? I have a lot of experience in this particular part because I've seen so many poor leaders over the years, right? And there's a few things that stand out to me when I'm looking at individuals and how people respond and how people react is the first one is there's kind of like a fear-based leadership where they use intimidation to garner respect. And fear, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Fear is not a good way to lead because it's only going to build resentment and animosity. And actually, essentially, it starts pushing people away. So a fear-based leadership is definitely not the route you want to go, and I've seen it time and time again. Another form of leadership is a person who has the title only, right? They may have a title of some kind of management or leadership, but they don't do anything. They're just a person carrying a title or a rank, but they don't really garner any respect either because they're not a take charge individual, right? They're just kind of going through the motions, and I think essentially people want to be led by good leaders at the end of the day. And I'm talking in all aspects of life. I'm talking work, sports, family, relationships, whatever organization that one is in, there's always going to be leadership. There's always going to be somebody in charge. And I'd like to think that most people want to have somebody in charge that is a take charge kind of person who listens, who is open-minded to new ideas from their people, things like that. I think for the most part, most people want to have a good leader. So when it's just somebody holding the title and not really taking action, you're not going to get any respect from anybody, right? You're just a fucking person getting by in life. This kind of goes hand in hand with another form of leadership, and I call it the puppet leader, right? Where you'll have somebody behind the scenes controlling the person, right? So, and that could be anybody. That face, that puppet, that person with the title can change. That person can always change, but the person behind the scenes will always be the one in control. And, that's just, again, it kind of goes back to the one I was saying before where it's just kind of holding a title. It's, when you have somebody who's being controlled, that shows that they can't make their own decisions, right? They can't make their own decisions, or they don't speak up for fear of some kind of retaliation, because it's like, well, this person, I better agree with this person, or, it's going to go sideways. And that is not a good form of leadership either. So those things, I think, are absolutely just the wrong way to lead. So I want to know how many of you have been fooled before, right? We're human. It happens. Like I said, sometimes you may not see something right away, but that's the thing. So I want to know what y'all think. Like, have you been in scenarios like that before? So if you have, I want to start a dialogue. Post your story in my YouTube comment section. Maybe we'll chat about it on another episode. So part of this thing too is there's going to be, like I said, a lot of people who are yes sir kind of people who just want to like follow orders, do their job, and go home, and I think that's kind of a problem, because then you're not really in that. Like, these people who are the yes men, the betas that I like to talk about, are people that aren't really involved, right? It's just just getting by, or it's, keeping you occupied on your time off, but they're not really invested, right? So that's something that doesn't really work for people like me and others. It's like you want to know that you have a say. You want to have something to say. Speak your fucking mind. That's how it should be. We're all come from different backgrounds and belief systems, and you never know who has a good idea. So instead of being a kind of a yes sir kind of person, I think it's helpful to be more proactive, right? Another thing with weak leadership, when you start seeing cliques form, cliques will start to form under weak leadership, and those in turn create division as well, because you start getting the cliques going. What about everybody else, right? The cliques start thinking they're special and they can get away with certain things, whereas, everybody around will always notice these things. So weak leadership will always allow that to happen, right? And it's not about having cliques. If you're part of an organization, it's about 100% dedication to what you're doing and working with everybody, not just pushing the good people out, right? Because that goes to my next thing that I was saying, because when you start getting these cliques under the weak leadership and it starts creating this division, you start pushing the good people that you want around out, right? And, or they'll just shut down and like be disconnected with everything else that's going on. So I think that's never a good thing. So, and this is why it matters to me, because division and cliques, they'll destroy an organization, and it's not going to happen overnight. It takes fucking time. But that kind of stuff, it always ends bad, right? Because then you have a lack of morale, and like I said, the good people, they start walking and they're just mentally checking out and doing other shit. So, or you just like, as a whole, start losing the mission, right? You start deviating from what you're really there for, right? So the purpose will eventually get replaced with like ego in politics. And, it's crazy how that shit works. It really is. I was at an event recently, and it's just funny. Everything was going great, right? Everything was smooth, and everybody was enjoying the moment. And then you have two absolute buffoons who are in leadership positions walked in and destroyed the whole harmony of what was happening, right? And me witnessing this, I'm just kind of like in the back laughing, because it's like these guys have no fucking idea what they're doing. These two individuals were the kind who lead by fear, right? And it's just laughable. So, when you see something like that, and it makes you realize that, okay, these are not the type of people I want to be, which leads me into, I'm 51 years old. I've been around the block a few times, right? And I've had a lot of leaders over the years through school, through the Marine Corps, through sports, just in life in general, right? And I've come across a ton of great leaders, and I've come across a ton of shit leaders. What I like to do is, if I have a leader that I really admire and respect, and I'm like, okay, this person knows what they're doing, I will always take bits and pieces from the leaders that I've come across, right? Like, you don't have to like everything, right? But as you get older and you come across people and you get into scenarios and different things, you start taking these bits and pieces and then adding it to your own kind of leadership skills, right? And you kind of just take a little here, you take a little here, you add it here. I do that in sales a lot because I'm a sales guy, and I come across a lot of sales guys. I come across a lot of people in charge. I talk to CEOs. I talk to, foremen. I talk to upper level, mid-level management guys, and I even talk, all the way down to the lowest guy on the totem pole. And I like to talk to everybody because you get, just like I said, those little pieces of how to talk to people, how to deal with people, and you listen. And, that works for me. So when I go about my daily life, I kind of keep eyes on that. As far as the shitheads, you're just like, that guy's a moron. That guy's a fucking idiot. I'm not going to listen to that guy. That guy's fucking has no idea what he's talking about. So it's really kind of like a balancing act. You're really running into people every fucking day. And, kind of goes back to that thing in a previous episode where you don't just give somebody a respect. They have to earn it in some way, shape, or form, right? And so that's kind of how I go about my day. So to me, I'm going to tell you what I think good leadership is supposed to be. I've already touched on it a little bit, but this is where I want to go with this. So leading by example is a huge thing for me. Because how can you tell somebody to do something if you're not willing to do it yourself, right? So real leaders, they'll be in the trenches with you. They'll get their fucking hands dirty, right? And I find that appealing when I see other leaders doing that. I'm like, all right, this guy knows what's fucking going on. Another thing that a good leader does is take accountability. I know we spoke about that on a previous episode. I'm all about people who take accountability. If you're constantly gonna play the fucking blame game, dude, you're gonna lose my interest in following you. I'm just not gonna be interested in wanting to associate with you in general, because I got no time for people who play fucking victims. So I think taking accountability is a huge, huge thing when you're leading people. So when I see dudes taking accountability of their actions, you know what? I don't care you fucked up. I don't care you fucked up. I mean, it happens all the time. You took ownership. Let's move on and let's not do it again, right? So I find that a very good trait in somebody. Another thing a good leader does is they're willing to foster different opinions, right? They're willing to hear you out. I think that's great, because my mentality is the more people brainstorming, the better, right? And I'm going to kind of get off track here because I want to kind of correlate a story on what I'm talking about right now. In my band days, right, when I was in the band and we were writing songs, for the longest time, it would always just be me writing lyrics, right? And sometimes I would have brain farts. Sometimes I would just be in a rut, and I couldn't write. I couldn't write any like good lyrics, and I would just hear the music's being created, the boys are doing their job, and they're coming up with their parts, but lyrics, like sometimes I would just be like stuck. So I would start opening it up. I'd be like, hey guys, like here's what I got. Here's what I got so far. I need like this fucking second verse. I can't figure it out, And we'd all start brainstorming, and boom, next thing you know, the guys would start throwing ideas out, and boom, then fucking 30 minutes later, all the lyrics are written. So I think it's a great thing when leaders get their people involved, because you never know who's going to have a fucking good idea, man. And sometimes you can create some fucking magical fucking things when you just sit and ask your people what's going on, right? So another thing I want to add to this is leaders don't mind making decisions and taking the heat for you, even when they know that this might cause a little bit of chaos. They don't mind taking the heat because they stand on values, right? So if someone's going to make a decision and it could be kind of like, well, fuck, this might cause some problems with upper management. But they decide, you know what? I truly believe this is the right course of action. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to back my people. I'm probably going to take some heat, but fuck it. This is what I think is best. Real leaders are willing to take a bullet for you. They're willing to stand on what they believe in, right? They're willing to take a chance and realize that, hey, this is probably not going to go well, but fuck it. I'll take the heat. That's important. That's a strong leader right there, willing to take the bullet for you. Here's the thing. Strong men have boundaries. Weak men negotiate. A real leader doesn't backpedal on their code just to keep the peace, right? Or win popularity contests. So I'm a firm believer in that. What can I say? The wrong leaders won't wreck your organization overnight. No, it takes time. They'll rot it from the inside. I've seen it happen time and time again. They'll rot it slow and quiet. So you have to watch closely. You have to watch people's actions. You have to watch their demeanor. Real leaders don't look good just on paper. They set the bar. They set the example. They stand behind their beliefs. They stand behind their people. And it's incredibly important. Like I said, I've misjudged many people over my lifetime. I'll probably do it again. But when someone tells you and shows you who they are, you fucking believe it. You fucking believe it. And when you see that they lack morals and decency, and you see that they're a fraud, that's when it's time to walk. It really is. That is when it's time to cut your losses and bounce. Losing friends is part of growing up. But the way I see it, we don't really lose friends, right? You just see who the real ones are. And sometimes that clarity is the best thing. So, my life has been so busy these days, I only have time for the people that are in my corner, right? I only have time for the ones who are real. Why the hell would I waste any more of my life, time, and energy on people who don't have my back? You should think that way too. Because so many times we surround ourselves sometimes with people who will be friends and just love you in front of you. And then when you walk away, they fucking stab you in the back. As far as I'm concerned, that's not being in my corner, but, it makes no fucking sense to me why people would stay in scenarios like that. So I got no time for fake people. Fuck that and fuck them. Because life is too short to hang out with fools. That's just the bottom line. So that's all I got to say about that. If you like my content and you've been listening in and following my episodes, smash that like button and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I got my YouTube, Facebook. I am in the process of uploading onto Spotify and all those other channels. I'm going to get there. But in the meantime, I would really like to strike up some dialogue with my listeners because, that's how you get to know people, right? That's how you get to know how people think. that's just part of who I am. I wanna know what y'all think and what makes you tick. Yeah, I'm working on getting on the Apple podcast to the Apple platforms where it's at, and I'm still getting there. But I'll keep y'all posted and let you know when I fully officially upload it onto those other platforms. So I want to leave this question out there. So again, I want to know if you've ever been fooled by someone in leadership when you thought they were a stellar leader and they turned out to be a fraud. Send me your story. I want to hear it. There's one last quote that I want to drop on y'all before I end out on this episode. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of the people that you're in charge of. It's really that simple. It really is that simple. And I think a lot of these leaders out there in the world really need to take a step back and look at themselves and ask themselves that own question, that question of, are you a good leader? Are you taking care of your people? Or are you just a fucking clown? With that being said, this is Reels signing off. Ride safe, live free, and don't take shit from anyone. Peace.